So as Jack mentioned, I am the youngest of 6, and when I was around the age of 4, my mom was teaching me how to read and write. And my sister at the time, not the sister that I started MUSE with, but my other sister, Paige, she was 15. And as I was learning to read and write, which was quickly becoming a passion of mine, my sister Paige was in a pretty horrific car accident in Oklahoma, where I grew up. And because I was the youngest of 6, I often got lost in the shuffle. And my mom ended up telling all of my brothers and sisters, don't tell your grandmother, don't tell Mama that Paige was in a car accident. Well, she didn't tell me because I was 4. She didn't worry that I would tell my grandmother because she lived in Louisiana. Well, my mom had done this wonderful, brilliant thing. She had taught me how to write. So in her desk, in her left-hand drawer, she had put in there envelopes, paper, pencils, stamps, and a little piece of paper that had my grandmother's address on it that I could copy onto an envelope. So what I did is I sat down and I wrote my grandmother a letter, and I said, Paige is in the hospital. But I didn't spell out hospital, I just sounded it out, and it was HSPTL. So my grandmother, obviously, received the letter. She called my mom and she said, Susan, why is Paige in the hospital? So the rest is history, because my mom knew I was the one who told my grandmother. It was then that I knew that I was developing a passion for writing. And I was learning that this ability to write and this ability to convey my thoughts on paper was a very powerful thing. Fast forward about 10, 15 years, and I was going into middle school and high school. And I continued to have these people in my life tell me that I should be a writer. I should be a writer. So when I went to high school, I had several advisors and mentors who told me, hey, Rebecca, you should really attempt to go to school and be a writer and study that. So in fact, I applied to school in New York, and I was accepted to a college where there were professors who were very well-known writers, very well-known poets, and I was accepted there. So it was very exciting. I was pursuing my passion. I had all these wonderful mentors and supporters in my life that were telling me I should do this. And my first semester I was there, and I took a class from a man by the name of Clark Rodwald, kind of a crotchety guy, but a very well-known writer, very well-known poet. And the first semester I had to write a paper for him, as we all did. And about 5-6 days later, after we turned in our papers, he returned them back. And I got mine back, and I was very eager and excited to see what he was going to say. And I got my paper back, and I looked at it, and it was all scratched up with red ink. I turned over, and I looked at all the other pages that he'd written on, and at the very end of the paper, he said, "Is English your first language?" So, maybe he wasn't a positive mentor, but he was someone who challenged me to be a writer. So let's fast forward and talk a little bit about MUSE. At MUSE, we teach both outer and inner sustainability. We teach about passions. We teach about mentors. We teach about people who will encourage children to do the things that they love. The outer sustainability piece is pretty easy. We are aspiring to be zero net energy. We are aspiring to be zero net water. We are aspiring to create absolutely no waste at MUSE. So the children are composting daily, they're recycling daily. We are getting ready to install 5 solar arrays. We are showing the children that they can build things from Recycle Town. So they're learning about engineering, and they're learning about technology. They're learning about being creative. They're learning about science and math. When we moved on to our new campus, we actually tore down a few buildings. but we repurposed a lot of those buildings, and some of our existing buildings have repurposed materials in those buildings. So that, again, is something that we're exposing the children to. MUSE has children from the age of 2 all the way up to middle school, and we are looking into having a high school as well. Just the other day, a little girl who's 3 went home to her mom, and she said, "Mom, where's our compost?" So it's really exciting because we're teaching little ones how to live sustainably in the outer way. Let's talk about inner sustainability. It's not something we hear a lot about. When you come to MUSE, whether you are a returning student or a new student, your teacher sits down with you and your parents, and your teacher says to you, "Tell me what you love. Tell me what your passion is. What do you love to do in the summer times? What have you been doing in the summertime?" We write that down and we document it on their individual learning plan. This is something that follows the student for all of the years that they're at MUSE. We can also send it along with them when they go to another school. So imagine that. Imagine being a student and being asked this question. So I'm going to give you a couple of case studies about a couple of students that go to MUSE and some of the passions that they have and how they've been able to pursue these passions. So we have a girl at MUSE, and she's 11. She's a very avid reader. She's pretty quiet, very intelligent, and her passion is to study wolves. So what she can do around studying wolves is she can embed science into that. She can embed technology into the study of wolves by doing research on her computer. So this girl, just last week, guess where she went? She went to a wolf sanctuary. So she was able to go and look at wolves in their natural habitat. We have another couple of girls. One's a kindergartner and one's a second grader. Their passion is fashion design. So we've got a kindergarten girl who is embedding science, technology, math, engineering into her study. Last week, the fashion designer came and worked with her on patterns and sewing. And these days, sewing machines are run by technology. So that's an example of a student that is pursuing a passion, but learning her academics through that. The fourth grader as well. And then we have a boy who's a third grader, and he recently went on a camping trip with his class, and he's very, very interested in almost a survivalist way of living. He's a third grader, but that's his passion. So we're teaching this boy how to embed academics into experiential learning, adventure learning, being outdoors, and he absolutely loves it. So that's the individual learning plan at MUSE. That is something where a child can follow their passions, follow their interests, while also getting their academics embedded into that. The second way of inner sustainability that we do at MUSE is called self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the belief in my ability to be successful. So how do we do that with a child? How do we define that? What does that look like? How we define it at MUSE is we look at a child's openness, resourcefulness, and persistence. So let's take the example of my college professor, Mr. Clark Rodwald, RIP. He taught me to be open to feedback. He taught me to be resourceful in really looking at my writing and my writing practice and my ways of submitting writing samples to people. And most importantly, he taught me how to be persistent. Even though he didn't do it in a way that we all think would be healthy and positive, he did teach me how to be persistent. So this is what we do with the children at MUSE. We talk to them about being open to being global citizens. We talk to them about being resourceful, to being stewards of the planet. We talk to them about being persistent in their passions, whatever that looks like. That's openness, resourcefulness, and persistence. Last week we had our first grade teacher, and she was in the classroom working with her children, And our middle school kids came in, and they teach our first graders math concepts sometimes. So our first grade teacher was actually watching and monitoring the students by looking at how they were doing their math activities. And she was guiding them in being more open and being more resourceful and being more persistent. And as a result, they were developing their ability to believe in their success. So it's really cool stuff. The third thing, and I think one of the most exciting things, is the implementation of the process communication model. This is something where we identify how a person negotiates the world. People will negotiate the world through their opinions, their feelings, their reactions, their inactions, their thoughts or their logic, and their actions. So what we do at Muses is we look at how children are negotiating the world, how they are looking through a lens, how they're communicating. And they are communicating through these 6 lenses. There are a few of these lenses through which these children communicate that are somewhat unusual and rare. And sometimes when children are looking through those lenses or those communications, they are seen as maybe getting labeled. In a traditional school, they might get labeled if they are seen looking through these particular lenses. At Muse, because we know what this child is exhibiting and because we know how they're communicating, they're not discriminated against, they're not labeled. So the process communication model, again, it's a model where we can look at how you and I best communicate. And again, it's very different for every single person. But it's something that has provided a very successful strategy for how we talk to children and communicate with them and teach them. And finally, this is not only for the students at Muse, this is for the adults too. So the teachers are creating their own individual learning plan, and really it's based on their goals and what they want to do as a teacher. We talk to them about their openness, their resourcefulness, and their persistence. And they get trained at the process communication model. They get trained in PCM. They go online, they take the inventory, and we learn about their needs and how to help them get their needs met. We learn how to motivate them based on how they communicate with the world. One final thing that I want to share is that Muse is located in Calabasas, California. Our dream is to take Muse nationally and internationally. We want to take Muse around the world. We want to make it global. We want to be able to share with people all over the world how to see the light in every single individual person. So, my challenge to you as you leave tonight and go do whatever you do, think about what blows your skirt up. Think about what makes you tick. Think about that passion. And when you see a person, whoever they may be, see their light, see who they are, because that's what we're doing at Muse School. We're really seeing children and honoring who they are. So thank you.